Hi, Ghosties. I'm Macy.
And I'm Natalie.
And we are back with part 2 of the Ghosts of St. Augustine, Florida.
Woo, woo, woo. I'm excited. I'm ready for the hauntings.
The first part had a couple of my favorites and a brief history of the oldest city in America. So if you haven't watched that yet, I highly suggest you go back if you want to learn anything about the past of St. Augustine. I feel like it's important to learn the backstory of a haunted location. So
Agreed.
all of the backstories in part 1. Today, we're going to get into mostly hauntings because this is a super interesting part of American history and super, super haunted place. Even with 2 parts, we're not even able to get through all of the haunted locations in St. Augustine. It seems as if every single building in that town is haunted by spirits.
I'm very excited. I would love to visit.
But yeah, this episode is chock full of spirits, including a couple of haunted inns, tortured souls that seem to remain earthbound, ancient Native American burial grounds, and a really weird spot that may or may not have been the location of a devil-worshipping cult.
Okay.
We've got a lot to talk about.
All right. I'm excited.
Ready to get started. Our tea today is from the Republic of Tea. It's a green tea.
The people's green tea.
The people's green tea. So,
woo, let's go.
I think I put too much sugar in mine because it tastes just like sugar.
I actually put less than I usually do, and it's good.
I accidentally poured, and I knew when I did it. I was just like, oh, no. But
Yeah.
it's fine.
I like it. I love green tea. I think it's really doing it for me
I
today.
think you like the last green tea that we drank too.
Yeah, I like green tea. It's just the ones that have like the intense flavors. I'm just not
this
a
one's
fan.
really mild. And
Yeah. I don't like to drink a lot of things. Like, I'm not adventurous with food, that's for sure, but
Yeah.
like drinks especially, it's
even
like
less so.
water, frozen Dr. Pepper.
I was gonna say, don't forget your
That's
addiction.
it. That's it. Even most of the time, like if I have a soda, I'm like, it's just not doing it for me. Like, I like sodas,
Yeah.
but I just like a mild drink. I don't like something too much. And a lot of the teas we've had have been too much.
Yeah, they're like have like at least one like really intense undertone of flavor inside. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I'm into it, but let's go. I'm excited about these stories.
So, as a brief overview, St. Augustine, Florida was established in 1565 by Spain. It has endured countless wars and hardships, changed hands from governing body to governing body, and remains today a popular destination for those seeking to catch a glimpse of the paranormal. If you'd like to hear more on the haunting history of the town and places like Casa de la Paz, the Lighthouse, Castillo de San Marcos, or the Huguenot Cemetery, then go back to part 1. Otherwise, we're going to move along to several more of the most haunted locations in the area.
Side note, I would love, if we ever started making money on this podcast, to visit all the places that we've talked about and like go through. Like, I would love to go here. I would love to go.
Me too.
I want to go here so bad. When I was in Vegas, I went to Vegas last week. I wanted to go to the Zach Baggins or whatever
You
museum.
said you didn't. You said you were scared.
I was scared, but then like I saw a truck driving with like that, like an ad on it, and I was like, oh, I want to go.
You should have gone.
I felt bold and like going, but we were with like kids and stuff, so like they wouldn't have been into it. And the adults
just
I was with
separate for a minute.
Yeah, but
Ryan wouldn't want to go though, would he?
no,
Not into that.
no, he's not into ghost stuff. It scares him. It's not that he's a non-believer. It's that I think he really believes it, and like,
He doesn't even want to think about it.
yes, if I even tell him like, oh my gosh, on this episode we were talking about blah 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 blah, he's like, don't tell me. I think he doesn't watch because he's scared. Ryan doesn't watch this podcast.
Yeah.
And the more I talk about it and the more I think about it, I think he's scared. Because the other day he was like, y'all need to stop talking about that in our house. Like, why? I was like, do you believe it? And he's like, I don't know, but I don't want you to bring something in here. And so
Yeah.
I think he's just scared.
Hey, we'll tell him that like we pray, or I pray at least, and we're respectful about how we speak of it.
Yeah,
and
we're not like, come to us.
No.
But like, I think it freaks him out. Because like, yeah, it makes me laugh.
Okay, well,
So it makes me feel better about him not watching. I think it's just because it scares him, not because he's a hater.
unsupportive.
Yes.
That
Anyway,
makes me feel
sorry.
better too. That makes me feel
Got way
better.
off topic. But St. Augustine.
Yes. So, starting with the St. Francis Inn, the oldest inn in St. Augustine. It was built in 1791 during the St. Augustine's second Spanish colonial period by Gaspar Garcia. If you remember, the town was destroyed and rebuilt several times and went from being owned by Spain, then Britain, then America, then Spain, then back to America. And this was during the second ownership by Spain. Garcia was a sergeant of the 3rd Battalion of the Infantry of Cuba and was granted the plot of land by the King of Spain at the time, Charles IV. But it is on this lot that he built the house that still remains today. The house is historically known as the Garcia Dumet House, named after some of the families who have owned it over the years. Ownership of the house went from Garcia to a sea captain named Juan Ruggers, I think is how you say his name, who made it his family home in 1802. Next, in 1838, it was bought by Colonel Thomas Henry Dumet. I also am not sure how to say that name. He and his family fled to St. Augustine after the start of the Second Seminole War, and Dumet passed in 1839 and was buried in the Huguenot Cemetery. That is when his daughter, Anna Dumet, took on the responsibility of keeping up the house. She ran the household with the help of her siblings and their spouses, including General William Hardy, who was married to her sister Elizabeth. It is at this point in the timeline that the legend of the haunting of St. Francis Inn begins. Just a quick warning before we get into this story. This one has talks of suicide and is really sad and horrible. So you might, if that bothers you, you can skip. This one's kind of hard.
Oh, God. They're all sad.
The story goes that William had invited his nephew to live with him and his family for a bit in the early 1840s. The teenage boy was wild and rebellious, and Hardy believed he would be able to straighten him out and help mold him into a respectable young man. The boy would help around the house and property, but very soon fell in love with a slave who worked in the home named Lily. He and Lily would sneak off any chance they got to keep their relationship a secret from everybody in the house. After a few months of this, Hardy began to suspect that something was going on. He went searching for his nephew one evening and found he and Lily in one of the bedrooms. Hardy was furious, and against the cries and pleas of his nephew, he beat the young girl severely right there in front of him. Lily was so badly hurt by the beating that she died from her injuries 3 days later. His nephew was stricken with grief and guilt over the passing of his lover, and after Lily passed, the young boy felt he had no other option to go on and committed suicide. Some say he hung himself in the very room. Others say he jumped from the 3rd-story window. The energy inside of that home shifted from that day forward.
What a great way to start this episode off. My God.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty heavy.
That's really sad.
After the unfortunate deaths of Anna's sisters, she eventually turned the home into a boarding house for all of the nieces and nephews. The building continued to serve as a lodging house in one way or another from that day forward. Being purchased by John Wilson in 1888, who added buildings to the property, over the years, it's been called the Tehan House, the Hudson House, the Valencia Annex, the Amity Apartments, the Salt Air Apartments, the Palms, the Graham House, and finally, sticking to its current name of the St. Francis Inn in 1948.
Wow.
It's a lot of history. In all of that time of renovations and change, one thing has stayed the same. The tragedy that occurred within its walls created a haunting that has lasted for decades. Many guests have claimed to see the apparitions of not only the 2 young lovers, but several others inside the home. Decor and people's belongings often move about the room untouched by real hands, I guess. Locked doors are suddenly opened, and even the sightings of ghostly hands appearing over the bed rails and posts at night.
Oh, I don't like that.
Could you imagine being like sleeping, waking up because you feel just like that, that weird feeling, and seeing hands kind of creep up over your bed?
But guess what? I can convince myself that it was a dream, and I would go right back to sleep.
I'm glad you
couldn't.
can. No, I'd have to be up for the rest of my life.
Nope. I would say, oh, I'm just dreaming, and close my eyes. Heart pounding, palms sweating, but I would tell myself it was just in my head.
You are an enigma.
I can convince myself of anything.
House cleaners all have their stories of encounters inside the St. Francis Inn, claiming that Lily will turn the TVs on after they've turned them off and start up coffee machines while they are in the rooms cleaning. One article or piece that I read said that she doesn't like MTV, and if the TV is set to MTV, she'll turn it off.
Nice.
Like, get this out of here. One guest claimed that while staying there, she was woken in the middle of the night to a loud bang, only to discover her purse was thrown across the room and everything in it scattered about the floor. How are you going to convince yourself that that didn't happen?
I don't know. That kind of just gave me chills. That kind of freaked me out. Just envisioning it.
Yeah. Most of the interactions people have with the spirits of the St. Francis Inn seem to be harmless and not too frightening. But that's not always the case. Some guests have reported whispering in their ears and the sensation of cold phantom hands on their skin. One woman staying there while on vacation with her husband said that she woke up in the middle of the night to a passionate kiss on her lips. She opened her eyes thinking it was her husband, but he turned to see that he was still sound asleep and nobody else was in the room.
I just gagged.
Isn't that horrifying?
Oh, I literally just gagged.
I would have to leave. I would wake my husband up and we would leave in the middle of the night.
That is so sick.
Sleep in our rental car.
That is so sick.
Ugh.
Oh my God.
I know, I hate that so much. And there was one story of a male guest who woke up suddenly at night to find he was underneath his bed, stuck, and began screaming for help. He couldn't get out. He was just under the bed. And the hole, like, to get into the bed was a little too tight for him to get out by himself. He said he had never sleepwalked before, and there was no explanation for how he could have ended up under there by himself. He actually needed staff assistance to get out. Explain this. How would you convince yourself then, Natalie?
I'm so scared. I don't know. That's a new fear.
Waking up under the bed? Yeah.
Because I'm already like afraid staying in hotels. Like especially if I'm by myself. Like, oh, I'm on high alert. I barely sleep. I sleep with like one eye open.
I've never stayed in a hotel by myself, and I don't think I want to.
I have several times. Under the bed.
Yeah.
First of all, hotels are gross.
A lot of hotels, I mean, I haven't been to very many like smaller like boutique inns.
Yeah, me neither.
But a lot of hotels will have the board covering underneath the bed.
Yeah.
I guess so you don't lose your stuff under there.
That's what I was thinking.
But I mean, this is like an inn, so it's probably got
just like a bed.
Like a regular queen size bed. Yeah.
How do you even explain that to the staff? Honestly, I think my embarrassment of like
would
needing
you just
help,
live there?
I would have to find a way to get out by myself. Because imagine calling staff in and being like, I'm stuck under my bed. I would be so embarrassed.
And he was stuck under there. I think they heard him yelling. And they were like, sir, are you okay?
I'm under the bed. That's crazy.
That's so scary.
Yeah.
Well, the most frightening story, though, comes from an experience of a man that stayed there with his wife. He said he was lying in bed one night before going to sleep when he felt a very strange sensation overcome him. It felt to him as if someone was forcing their way into his mind, into his consciousness. He jumped up out of bed, hoping that a walk and some fresh air might help him, but when he returned to his room, the same feeling came on to him once again, this time even stronger. It was as if something was trying to possess him.
What does that even feel like? What do you mean?
I don't know, like suddenly he wasn't the only one in his mind. And so he jumped up and he's like, I gotta take a walk. Maybe I'm just overcome with all the spookiness of the town or something. So he's like, everything will be fine. He took a walk. He was perfectly normal. Came back and laid back down in the same room. And it started happening again, even stronger. It was hard for him to fight it off.
I would have to get help. I don't like that one at all. Is it a physical feeling that you feel someone like in your brain, or is it just like, are you hearing their voice? Like
it wasn't clear, but I feel like it was more so he felt like he was coming to the background and something else was coming to the foreground.
That is one of the most horrifying things I've ever heard.
Just suddenly you've never experienced anything like that before, nothing like that. Like I know some people with DID on YouTube and stuff will say that, like they'll feel like altars or whatever they're called coming forward and switching, but to have never experienced anything like that, and you're just lying there about to go to sleep, just chilling on your vacation, and suddenly just something or someone else is just coming into your mind.
I'm really scared.
With you.
I'm really scared.
Yeah. That feels like such a sacred place. Like that is me. That's the only place that is fully mine and me that no one can ever, alter or come into. And to have something evil that gets me. That makes me a little sick.
Yeah, I really don't like that.
Would you stay at the St. Francis Inn?
I was gonna say yes until that one.
Would you?
Yes.
Even with the kiss?
Oh, never mind. No.
I feel like we had another story where
we did.
They felt kisses in their hotel room.
We did, and it was that like soldier man or cowboy. It was the cowboy man or something like that.
Where was that?
I don't know, but it was sick.
Yeah.
All of it. I don't want to be touched.
No.
Like by a real person, a ghost, any of them.
Like if you throw my purse across the room, okay, fine. It's your room anyway. But to touch my person or my mind, please don't.
I'm disturbed. I would not stay there. I don't even think I would visit.
Really? I would 100% visit.
I'll stay on the outside.
I don't know that I would stay there, especially if people are waking up underneath their bed in the middle of the night. I don't think that's something I could do.
I'd take a picture from the outside and let you go in, and I would just hang out.
Okay.
That makes me so sick. Because what if it gets into your mind and then comes with you? I wouldn't trust you the rest of the trip.
Really?
Because what if it's not you?
I feel like I would run out before it would be able to be completely overcome by a spirit.
You never know.
Another well-known haunting in St. Augustine is a building that now operates as a museum. It is the old Spanish military hospital, and along with its ghosts, it houses many displays showcasing the medical practices that were popular in the 17 and 1800s, including surgical demonstrations, apothecary care, and medicinal herbs. Side note, reading Outlander has made me want to learn, herbal medicine.
Oh God, please don't become that person.
What if I am suddenly thrust back into the 1700s and need to know how to care for myself medically.
You won't be.
You
We
never
have
know.
modern
It's
medicine.
possible.
We have modern medicine, and I don't want you to get to that side. I feel like you've been
I'm
heading
not-
down that route.
I would never be the kind of person that's like, oh no,
Rub
you're
some-
sick. Let me just put some oils on your feet.
That's what I was about to
and then
say.
You should be fine.
Potato peels on the feet.
No, I would never be that kind of person. But to think that like zombie apocalypse, any kind of apocalypse
I'm not
happens,
fighting to live.
any kind of apocalypse. Okay, you're not fighting to live. I probably wouldn't either. If it came down to it. But if I need to take care of my children, yeah, I need to know these things.
But
Like how to treat a headache in the wild.
girl, if it's
You
a
know,
headache,
little
just
things
get
like that.
over it. Get over it. The
A
only thing you
migraine
need to
then.
close your eyes.
You can't close your eyes when you're on the run.
You can. Bird Box.
Okay, I guess so. The building itself was purchased and remodeled by a Scottish carpenter named William Watson during the British rule over St. Augustine. When the Spanish once again seized control of the territory, they combined this building with 2 others right beside it and turned it into a hospital strictly treating Spanish soldiers only. So if you were in the military, you can come here. If you weren't, sorry. Go elsewhere. As you can imagine, medicine wasn't up to the standards that we expect today. And the survival rate of someone with an infection or illness was definitely not as high as we have now. But during the building's operation as a hospital, they were able to keep those survival rates much higher than previous or even those back across the ocean in Europe. So they had pretty good odds at this hospital. I don't know what they were doing.
They were doing it right,
They
though.
were doing it right. So this is one quote that I read about, I think it came from the museum. They still had to deal with endemic diseases and hostile forces, both from the British as well as the natives. But all in all, they had a really low mortality rate. Back in Europe, most medical care was a mix of religious beliefs and blind luck. In the colonies, out of the sight of the church, doctors could practice a more secular form of medicine, one based on science and not God. They relied less on prayer and more on
Medicine.
actual, medicine
Huh.
and things that they learned.
Okay.
Even still, the death and tragedy that this hospital saw was plenty, because it was still a long time ago.
Yeah.
The hospital was operational until 1818 when a fire burned the West Wing. They decided to relocate their hospital to another part of town and slowly began to move all of their equipment elsewhere. In 1821, after a flood from some water lines, a crew was sent into the building to do some damage control. Unbeknownst to the town people, deep beneath the structure laid thousands of bones. It was believed to be a Timucuan burial ground. Archaeologists in 1934 found that it could actually have been a mass grave of a tribe conquered by the Timucuan people, due to the burial ground they found not far from the one under the hospital years later. So they found another burial ground that seemed more like ceremonial,
Yeah.
and this one seemed kind of more like a mass dumping burial ground.
Oh my God.
And the violent end that most of the bones that they found underneath the hospital had come to kind of helped that theory along,
Yeah.
too.
Was it a bunch of natural causes? It
No,
was
it was a lot of
Ugh.
violent ends. Regardless of who was buried underneath the hospital, workers and patients that resided in the building have reported paranormal activity for years and believed that something very dark and evil lurked through the wards. Which makes sense. I mean, if you're placed on top of tragedy, just death and horrid things, there might be some vengeful spirits down there.
Well, duh.
People claim to hear the moaning cries and screams of patients long past and see the imprint on beds that nobody is lying in. There are notes and letters from the period in which it was in operation that detailed the patients and doctors who would refuse to enter certain rooms. One doctor having to be marched at gunpoint to the bedside of a sick officer because he just did not want to go into the room that he was in.
Oh, wow.
There was something really bad in there.
Mhm.
The morning ward is said to have been one of the most haunted rooms in the building. It was used for patients receiving last rites, so the ones that were passing on soon. And it's in here that many claim to have some of the more frightening encounters. Some tourists have just run out of the room to the front door because they will feel the presence of something dark upon them and get a tight feeling in their chests as if something is pressing against them. And some have even gotten deep scratches across their back after visiting the old hospital. I feel like anytime you hear about haunting that seems to come from something dark, there's always scratches and like physical violence.
Yes, and it's very unsettling. Most of the time when it's like a good haunting or someone, passed on beautifully and it's grandma, you just see it and you feel it. But like the bad ones are like they're
Like
touching.
they've got some like enough energy with their, I don't know, the negativity they have to be able to like manifest themselves in actual physical contact.
I wish it was the other way around.
That the good ones could touch you.
I wish people were feeling hugs instead of like scratches.
I mean, some do, but
but
yes,
we hear these like more often.
The worst sighting by tourists and employees is the full body apparition of a previous patient. He can be seen standing tall in a white hospital gown, moaning in agony, blood dripping from where his arm used to be. And he has been seen several times.
That is disgusting.
Terrifying.
You know what? I don't know if I've told this story on the pod before, but side note, speaking of someone's blood dripping out of their arm, you know about when I got my nails done and I saw that lady? I was getting my nails done, this was about 3 years ago, and I was sitting, in my little chair just doing the nail thing. All of a sudden, this old woman rounds the corner. Arm up like this, bone sticking out, blood dripping everywhere, looks at me and goes, "Help me."
I've never heard this story.
Are you serious? Oh my God. So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at this woman's bone. She looks at me and says, "Help me." Both my hands are occupied and I just go, and the person doing my nails turns around. It was like mass panic, like within 2 seconds. All the people got up and were running around, cleaning up the blood, helping her, trying to make her sit down. The ambulance came and then
Did she fall or something?
She fell in the bathroom somehow and just like snapped her arm. It was the nastiest thing I've ever seen. I'm not like I can't do gore, even fake gore in movies. That was the worst thing I've ever seen.
I've never seen anything like that and I don't want to.
To look at me and say, "Help me?" I was like,
was she
what
an
do you
old
want
lady?
me to do? Yeah. It was the most shocked it was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
You're just sitting there with your nails like,
I literally just said, and then people like saw me panicking because she was at the back. All the nail techs are facing this way.
Oh, so you saw her over there.
And all the people getting their nails done are facing this way and she's coming this way. So like only we can see her. All the nail techs are facing the other way.
Yeah. Oh, I hate that so
was
much. I'm so sorry.
Apparently she had come back and demanded a bunch of stuff or she's going to sue and all this stuff. So she like flipped it and started acting evil towards them. But so that's what that reminds me of.
I think I'd rather see this ghost than that.
Me too. I would too. It was horrifying.
So you'd visit the Spanish hospital then? Because you've seen something
worse
already.
I've seen it. Yeah. Also, it was in October. I was getting orange like October nails. So it was like spooky time anyway.
Oh, and if it were me, I would think, "Oh my gosh, a spirit is coming to ask me for help."
She's a real person. Yeah,
totally
it was
kidding.
insane. I've never seen such panic in such a short amount of time.
I hate that for you. I'm so sorry.
It was real bad. The man, the patient and everything, been there, seen that.
Okay.
It wouldn't scare me that bad.
It's such an interesting take.
I mean, hey.
I think I would be frightened though. Either way.
I would.
The old woman or the ghostly man. Just either way, I'd probably scream.
Yeah.
As we've discussed many times at this point in our podcasting journey, old jails are always haunted by the horrific things that were endured within their walls. And the old jail in St. Augustine is no exception. It is open today for tours and even offers paranormal investigations because it is considered one of the most haunted buildings in town. It was built in 1891 by Henry Flagler, the rich guy we talked about in part 1.
Mm-hmm.
He realized when he was building one of his extravagant buildings that the unsightly original jail was right in view. That was unacceptable to him, of course.
Not good for business.
No one wants to walk out of their like just extravagant, beautiful quarters and see suffering. Like, we have to cover that up.
Jesus.
So he had the original jail demolished and rebuilt it in a less insulting location and in a nicer design, so it kind of fit in more with the aesthetic of the town.
That's
on the
still
outside.
sounds so horrible.
It was pretty bad. But the inside, it was still abysmal. So at least it looked nice on the outside when you walked past.
Gosh.
It contained a nice sheriff's quarters with all the amenities for the sheriff and his family to live. But outside of that, the building was ghastly for the prisoners housed within. The jail housed up to 72 male prisoners and 12 female prisoners with no blankets or pillows provided. The mattresses that they were given were stuffed with Spanish moss and more often than not contained bed bugs of some kind. It had no facilities for bathing or bathrooms. You can imagine the stench emanating through the corridors. That's one thing I think about sometimes when I think of like old jails or like old places. I'm like, oh, it probably stunk. It probably smelled so bad.
I think about that when I think about when people wore those huge dresses and stuff and everybody wore suits and nice clothes. I'm like, wow, they look so nice.
You're probably
I know
hot.
they smell so bad because
All
there's no
sweaty.
deodorant. They don't bathe.
I think about that too. And like, so I think of things in the context of where we live and it's just always hot. And so when you see things like old time, like in Europe, like in Scotland or something, where it's more mild temperatures and it's cooler more year round.
But still,
I think of in this context, I'm like, you are probably sweaty.
in Florida.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Just swampy.
Hot, swampy, disgusting.
Yeah. And then not having an area to bathe too in the jail.
That's so sad. I
pretty
can't
bad.
imagine living in that.
No. The area of the jail for maximum security were equipped with torture cages and stockades with a nice view of the gallows, where 8 men were executed in the 62 years it remained open. Just staring at the gallows all day?
Knowing.
That would be kind of torturous. The prisoners were used for free labor in the area, often shackled together by the ankles as they were taken from farm to farm to do hard labor in the summer heat and humidity. They were often not given the proper equipment for their work or even shoes, and would return to the prison with open wounds and total exhaustion. There are also reports that the women prisoners were used for a different kind of labor. They were prison maids on paper, but it's rumored that they were used for much darker means by night, and I'm sure you can figure out what I'm trying to say here.
That is so sad.
It's not confirmed, like documented confirmed, but it's like
known.
they kind of know, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sick.
Many of the prisoners housed at the jail didn't last more than 2 years before succumbing to infection, disease, malnutrition, or just the heat in general. The amount of people dying inside of the prison was so astronomical that it's believed that those in charge began to fix the numbers because they were like, hey,
we can't.
Those in charge, they were like, hey, this is kind of a lot. They claimed that prisoners would escape if they passed out while working in the fields, which that happened a lot.
I can imagine.
Or even send them off to other jails or grant the inmate pardon if they were on the brink of death. They were like, oh, he's kind of circling the drain. Let's send him home. Or let's send him off to this prison over there so we don't take the number.
Oh my God.
Isn't that sad?
This is horrible.
This whole episode's kind of awful. I should have kind of given a warning at the beginning.
Yeah.
There are so many different hauntings inside the jail, as you can imagine, with all the horrid things going on. To start, many people who visit or even live near the jail claim to hear the sounds of chains rattling and loud footsteps coming from inside the jail at night. So when no one's there. The souls of the tortured prisoners imprinted on the spot. Like it's just... That feels more like a residual haunting.
I was going to say that. Their energy is just there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Another thing that lingers seems to be the smell. So we talked about how horrid it must have been. Well, some people still experience it when they walk through today. It's often reported that visitors and tour guides will smell the aroma of sewage wafting through the cells.
That would be enough for me.
I can't think of anything worse than being haunted by a smell. I hate smells. When people tell me to smell things, I'm like, no thanks. I just don't smell. Even if it smells good, I say no. I don't smell things.
No, I don't like to.
So I couldn't imagine being assaulted by a nasty scent, like a haunted nasty scent.
No, if we ever went and I smelled that, we're wrapping up the tour. I'm done.
Just going home that night.
I'm done. There's no way.
There have been many people who claim to feel as if a cold hand is being placed on their shoulder as they tour the facility, and even a tug on their hair or a grab at their ankles, scratching at their backs, and blowing a cool rush of air on their necks.
I don't know why the ankle got me.
I don't like it. I think of what's that movie?
On the ground.
This might be a little crazy. Every time I get out of my bed, I picture someone being under my bed waiting for me to like grab me, or what's that movie? Slice your Achilles. Was that like Hostel or something like that?
I don't know, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Every time I get in my car, I like walk around it. I never like just run up on my car because I'm afraid.
Someone's going to be under it?
Yes.
Oh, that's a new fear unlocked on me.
Really? You've never
thought about that.
Oh, I do
think
all
about
the time.
someone being inside my car, but not underneath my car.
I think underneath, I get in, I shut the door, and I go, and I turn around and see if anybody's in there.
Well, if you haven't guessed, we are a people of fear. That is our culture.
Yes.
And now you've given me a new one. Thank you.
I live in constant fear.
I am actually bristling inside.
The ankle thing really messed with me. Like,
Yeah.
we've heard the hand, we've heard the wind, blah, 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 blah. But
No.
the ankles.
Okay, so yes, the ankles. Yeah, that sounds awful. Blowing on your neck. Like, I don't know, just suddenly feeling like your neck is like warm. It's covered by your hair, you know, but just suddenly feeling a cool rush. Like,
I'm sick. Okay, I don't want to
like
talk
it
about
at
it
all.
anymore. I'm sick.
These sensations are also accompanied by the haunting sounds of wailing and moaning from disembodied voices. The maximum security segments of the jail contain the sounds of whispered conversations, and in the old sheriff's quarters, some have reported hearing the voice of a little girl talking and playing.
Why?
I don't know. So, there's no like reported or that I read of like a death of a child there, but the sheriff did live there with his family.
With his kids.
Maybe a residual haunting, or after death she came here because this was a place that she had fond memories for some reason,
Or there's something in there just pretending.
or that.
Oh, that just made me sick.
Yeah, or there's something really dark and evil that has.
Just pretending, just playing around.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sick. Okay.
So when I think about children hauntings, on one hand, it's like, oh, like I'd want to talk to them and like comfort them and help them.
Nope.
But on the other hand, you never know. And I feel like we say that every time, but you just never know. You could be conversing with something so dark.
You're not Jennifer Love Hewitt. You're not the ghost whisperer. You don't have to. You don't have to be doing these things.
I never have. I never have. But when I think about it, when I think about a child like ghosts just stuck, that's the inclination that I have to. I just feel like I need to
help. Yeah. No, not me. Speaking of Ghost Whisperer, though, I should not have been watching that when it was on TV.
Why?
I was young, and that's a scary show. I used to be
scary.
Horrified.
The beginning is scary. Every episode.
Move on.
Oh, okay. That's scary too.
That is sick.
But I'm talking about like the actual show. Like the beginning's a little scary because they're like lost and afraid and sometimes angry.
Yeah.
But at the end, it's always a happy ending.
It's always happy.
Except for when her friends die.
Yeah, but that show used to freak me out.
I actually watched it recently.
It used to freak me out, but I would always watch it with y'all.
Yes. I was a little scared after it turned off. I'd be like looking over my shoulder, but
I was afraid of the Goosebumps
really
movies.
Scared. Oh, for good reason. Some of them. I still think about that plant one.
I think about the puppet one, the ventriloquist Goosebumps.
I know what you're talking about.
The
The
dog. Oh, it's so freaky.
Okay, let's move on. There is also a maniacal laugh that has been reported on multiple occasions coming from the women's cells.
I don't know why that made it worse.
I know. Like it's a woman's laughter. Maniacal, just like unhinged.
I don't know why that made it scarier for me because I was imagining a dude. Oh, I don't like it.
Sheriffs who lived on the property had dogs too, and these pups seem to have left some energy behind.
Aww.
People claim to hear dogs barking at night, and it could be the pets of a sheriff that is believed to remain there still today. Sheriff Joe Perry was a well-known and very tough sheriff who took his job seriously. He was a very large man, and people claim to see him still traipsing around the jail, crossing in front of the main doors and vanishing right before your eyes. The worst encounter experienced here is within the solitary cell. Many who have taken a seat all alone in the far left corner of the cell have seen a large, dark, shadowy figure lurk towards them, tearing at them in the darkness. And even the people who didn't witness the shadow will sometimes have deep scratches appear on their skin the next day. So they'll leave and then they'll wake up the next day and have just lacerations across their skin.
If that ever happened to me, I don't think I'd ever feel safe again.
Well, the people who have witnessed it say whatever it is dark. You can just feel it and see it, and the energy that it gives off is just very negative. It's believed that it could be a prisoner from the past, particularly one of the more dangerous ones. And there are even thoughts that it could just be a collection of all the cruelty, hatred, and evil in one mass of darkness. So all of that negativity from all of the people in and out of the jail just kind of amassed itself. So the people who have been there say they feel a hunger emanate from it, a pressure building up, something rotten just before the shadows burst out at them. So it'll just kind of be hovering almost there, just lurking kind of in the corner, and it bursts toward them. One TripAdvisor comment actually stated, like it was trying to consume me.
What does that even mean? Like,
completely overtake them.
I mean, yes, I know what consume means, but
okay.
What? Ew. Maybe it needs like energy to feed off of. So
that's what I think.
Remain.
Like having all of these haunted tours and paranormal investigations and stuff
people.
And having people's fear just always there. And like you said, it feeds off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
That's probably one of the worst hauntings in St. Augustine and ever. that I've ever read of.
Anything with a lot of speed is just too much.
Yes. I think we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Anything
if it starts running.
Yeah.
Just running in general. I don't run.
Well, moving on, the Casablanca Inn is a popular tourist destination for those visiting St. Augustine. It overlooks the Matanzas Bay and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The two-story Mediterranean Revival building and carriage house were built in 1914 and originally called the Matanzas Hotel, after the bay. A woman called Miss Bradshaw was given the job of handling operations of the inn and initially ran a very clean and prosperous boarding house. It was known for its hospitality and excellent meals. So very popular place. And not one of the more expensive ones like Flagler had built. It wasn't like super rich people
for the
staying
commoners.
there. It was the regular people. Then the prohibition began.
Oh man.
Ms. Bradshaw and the hotel were going through tough times in the early 20s, and when she realized that there was a huge market for smugglers in the bay, she pounced on the opportunity to turn things around for her business. She became an integral part of the Rum Runners operation in St. Augustine. FBI agents often stayed in her inn while conducting business in town, giving her all of the information she needed to coordinate drops and house some of the cargo inside.
I love a business
where she also sold to those looking in the area. So she was a seller. She housed it. She helped coordinate drops and shipping.
A businesswoman.
An entrepreneur.
Good for her.
Yes. She had a system of warning some of the ships carrying the alcohol. Seeing as she had a clear view of the bay, like it overlooks the front of the building, she would light a candle in one of the top windows of the inn to let them know that federal agents were milling about town or staying at her inn. Because every time the FBI would come, they would come and stay at the whatever it was called at that point of Matanzas Inn. They would come and stay with her. So she knew what they were doing and when they arrived in town.
Nice.
It was a simple and unnoticeable warning for the smugglers of the danger they would encounter if they were to dock their ships at the port, because they'd often go to the port and check all the ships to check their cargo. She would make sure to snuff out those flames if the coast was clear, and this went on for years. That's another thing that's kind of embarrassing. If they were to find out that she were doing it, it'd be kind of embarrassing to take her in. Yeah. Because she's been doing it for years while you stay, you eat her meals,
and you just telling her,
converse with her like, oh yeah, we're gonna go check the docks next and blah blah. Like, that's embarrassing.
I love that for her. I love that they like weren't suspecting this woman and she's like the mob boss the whole time. I love that.
Miss Bradshaw was wildly successful at running the inn and the rum and was able to keep up operations right under the noses of the federal government. That isn't all she was doing while she was in charge of the boarding house, though. Legend says that she not only found a surefire way to make money, but she also found love.
Oh.
She is said to have fallen in love with one of the sailors she worked with often while buying and selling their illegal imports. They would get together when he came to town, and they were madly in love. One night, as her lover's ship arrived in the bay, several FBI agents walked into her inn to stay for the night. She kept calm and checked them into their room and got them settled, knowing that the man she loved was in danger if he continued on to the port, because he was already there. It took her too long to get up to the top floor and light the candle, and when she finally made it up to the top floor, she could see the ship making its way to the dock and knew that just lighting one candle wouldn't be enough to save the men. She climbed up to the roof and waved a large lantern back and forth, signaling to the men to turn around. This went on for several minutes until those on the ship noticed her at last and were able to turn back out into the bay before they could be caught.
Good.
Miss Bradshaw was relieved to see them go, but what she didn't know is that would be the last time she would ever see that ship or her love again. The ship made its way back out into the ocean and disappeared. It is unknown whether it was hit by a storm or taken by pirates, but Miss Bradshaw waited for them to return for the rest of her days. She continued running the inn, eventually renamed the Casablanca Inn, until she passed away.
That was a lot sadder than I thought it was going to be. Really sad. I just thought he was going to go to prison.
They never found out whether the ship was destroyed, taken, or if they just decided to dock somewhere else, and he just was never able to make it back to Florida.
I hope so. But
that he ended up in like Jamaica or something.
Something that scares me the most is the unknown. Just not knowing. I would rather know that he died than just wonder like, is he out there?
Oh yeah, me too.
What happened?
Well, the spirit of Miss Bradshaw is still tending to her inn in the afterlife. She has been seen gliding through the halls and entering rooms, and one guest took a photo of herself in the mirror in her room, and when she looked through them after returning from her trip, she could see a woman standing behind her, even though she knew she was alone in the room at the time. There's also a strong scent of oranges that wafts through the inn that is believed to be the doing of Miss Bradshaw. I'm not sure the backstory on this one, but maybe she liked oranges or always had freshly squeezed orange juice or something for her guests, but people always randomly smell oranges.
That's kind of cute.
And if you smell oranges while you're staying at the Casablanca Inn, Miss Bradshaw is sure to be nearby. So you're more likely to see her if you smell her first.
Oh.
That's kind of weird.
Okay.
Lots of smells in this episode that I'm not too fond of.
No.
She's typically a gentle and benevolent spirit, but there's one thing she does not like in her old inn, and that is tablecloths. If there are tablecloths on any of the tables throughout the building, they will be ripped off and thrown to the ground to the detriment of any dishes or items placed on top. So she can't stand a tablecloth for some reason.
That's an interesting hill to die on.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the most common sightings of Miss Bradshaw are from outside of the inn. People often report seeing a bright light emanating from the window that she used to use to warn the rum runners during the Prohibition.
I knew it. I knew that was coming.
Had to be. Another spirit known to haunt the grounds of Casablanca Inn is Mr. Butler. He is supposedly the architect of the building and loved it so much that he returned there in his afterlife. I could not find anything on him other than his name was Mr. Butler. Not even a first name.
Nice.
He's just Mr. Butler.
What if his first name was Mr.?
Not likely, but sure.
I mean, some people name their kids like Sir and, things like that, so they always are respected.
I guess so. That's weird. He stays in and around room 11 and is known to manifest himself into a full body apparition in front of guests. There are a lot of full body apparitions in St. Augustine.
Okay, maybe I do actually really want to go because I've wanted to see like a full ghost.
Yeah, same. He appears well dressed and will often come face to face with the people that stay in his room. He is a comforting spirit that will assure guests that they are all right and there's nothing to be afraid of. So he just like appears in front of them and they start to freak out. He's like, no, everything's okay. It's all right.
Okay.
I'm not mean. I'm not evil.
Okay, sure.
The guests who see him don't usually take his word for it, though.
No.
They're usually like running out.
Would
the door.
you? I mean, you
No.
see a full ghost and he's like, hey, I'm chill. No, I'd be gone.
Yeah, I don't think I'd
Wouldn't
wait for him to even
Stick
say
around.
anything
No.
to me, honestly.
That's pretty funny, though.
People have seen and heard the spirits of children in the halls and all around the property, even when there are no children staying at the inn. And they hear eerie sounds coming from within the walls and a misty, shadowy fog that drifts through the property. One story comes from a review of the hotel online. The guest wrote, "Weird stuff started happening the first night we were there, like a light turning on and off, even after it was unplugged. We sensed a presence of some sort in our room the entire stay. I didn't even want to take a bath in fear of someone or something watching. We were sleep deprived after the stay as we attempted to sleep with our heads under our pillows so that we wouldn't hear the noises in our room and the house. We had been asked to pay in advance. Now I know why."
Okay, that, I didn't even think about that, like staying in a haunted hotel, showering.
Yeah.
You'd
that's
have to
never
come
been something
sit
I
on the
thought about.
toilet with me while I showered. I could not. I could not.
Yeah.
Could you go into that bathroom,
No.
shut that door, and shower by yourself?
No. Especially not if the possibility of a man just suddenly appearing in my bathroom.
I don't think I could go in there by myself.
That would be hard. That'd be tough.
Even if you were like sitting right there, I'd still be like, Macy,
Just keep my
I
hands
have to
in
touch you. Oh, that's so scary. I didn't
Yeah.
even think about that.
I've never thought about that either, but now I will. Now I just may never leave my house. Moving on. The last location I wanted to tell you about today is by far the strangest. So I found it on only a couple of websites, and it didn't have very much information outside of those sites. Now, I don't typically write about stories with less sources because I like to keep things as close to real as I can get. But I found this story so odd and so unsettling that I just had to tell you about it. It was weird.
I'm scared. Okay.
So you can take everything I'm about to tell you as either truth, if you want to, or just a fun legend created by some writers on the internet. So up to you. But Warehouse 31 was supposedly home to several companies over the years, and none of them have stayed long in the building. It was said in these articles that today it's the location of a big haunted house opened during spooky season to play up the haunted vibes of the whole town. I couldn't find anything on it in St. Augustine. I found another Warehouse 31 in Jacksonville, which is near St. Augustine. It's in operation for that purpose. So I'm not sure if they just mixed it up or what. But the Warehouse 31 in St. Augustine says that it is permanently closed on Google Maps. As I said, it was used by several companies over the last couple of decades, but none of them stayed for very long because it's haunted. It's rumored that employees inside of the space, while it was used for various businesses, would report strange hissing sounds and static over music and recordings. They would often become very suddenly ill, suffer from insomnia and vicious nightmares after coming to work in the building, and many of their belongings would often disappear with no explanation. Even after setting up security cameras, the businesses still couldn't find a reason for all of its missing stuff. Many people who have been in or near Warehouse 31 tell of this overwhelming feeling of evil that engulfs them. It is suffocating and often causes people to flee from the location. It's believed that the cause of this evil could be from the building's first tenants. In the early 2000s, a man named Al Wist moved to St. Augustine and was drawn to the newly built warehouse building. He was a preacher of sorts and had been traveling the US trying to teach messages of hope and light, actually building a small following by the time he'd settled in Florida. He was said to often proclaim, "The Father loves you," or even, "Give yourself up to the Father." And many believed that he was like any other Christian minister. He had many beside him, but there was just something about him that turned people off of his ministry. He never said the name Jesus, and though it seemed like he was preaching the Bible, the feeling he left on those a little less impressionable was just a little eerie.
He just sounds like a cult leader. That's all it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much. Wist used Warehouse 31 to plant a new church, the Church of the Light Bearer. Sounds positive and holy enough. Quickly, the other people working in buildings around the church began to get that same feeling of unease around Wist and his followers. They were eccentric, to say the least, and though people felt it fine to be passionate about their faith, the aggressive way that these people tried to grow their church was extremely off-putting. They were persistent in the way they pushed anyone who even made eye contact with them to join them at their next sermon, asking very personal questions and making everyone in the area feel uncomfortable.
That's really scary.
You know, there are those people that like exude light when they talk about their faith, and like you can really feel their passion and positivity.
It's positive.
coming from them.
Yeah.
Yes. These people were more aggressive and almost frightening in the way that they approached people. It wasn't the message that they conveyed, because it was always like, oh, love, light, happy, God. Well, I don't
their
even know if they
energy.
said God, but yeah, it was the way that they said it, the vibes that they put off while delivering the message was just really scary.
That's
to some
those people that stop you in the store and are like, "Do you know Jesus?" Like, those types of people.
Some of them, yeah. I mean, there are some who are like, I have heard of stories of people coming up to people and like, I'm so sorry, I just felt called to do this and like talk to you about this, and it's like a really positive experience. But then there are those people who like aggressively like facepalm you little brochures of Jesus. You know what I'm talking about?
The guy that used to come into my work, there was a guy when I was a server, he would come into my job. Long story short, long story short, was a horrifyingly overbearing, mean,
scary
quote
person?
unquote Christian man, and he would start every conversation with, if you died today, would you go to hell or would you go to heaven? And I'd be like, I think I'd go to heaven. He'd be like, why? And I said, I'm a good person, I'm honest, and you know, I treat people kindly. He's like, that's not enough. And then he would make you stand there. Keep in mind, I'm working. He'd make you stand there and recite prayers and stuff with him. And it was so uncomfortable. And it got to the point where like the managers would be like, okay, if he tries to talk to you, say you're not allowed to talk about religion at work and walk away.
That's so scary.
He was a scary dude.
That is not the way to bring people into your religion.
He would do it every time. And like there was one time where I had seen him a few weeks back and he did that same thing to me. And then he came in again and he asked me that question. I was like, you asked me this last week. And he was like, I did. I said, yes. I was like, we've already talked about it. And he was like, okay. And he was with a friend, so it embarrassed him. And I was like, yeah.
Well, that makes me sad because there are good people.
There are, but he was not a good person.
The religion itself is good. It teaches good and love. Mm-hmm. And there are people who use it in bad ways.
And it's unfortunate.
But these people didn't seem to be the good people. They seemed to be the bad ones. It was whispered all over town that they would often perform something that looked like dark rituals and other strange worship services that didn't quite fit your normal Christian church. It wasn't long before people began to realize that who they were worshiping was not God or Jesus, but Lucifer, the bearer of light. Because that's what Lucifer means.
I thought they were worshiping like the band, like the guy that's pushing the religion.
No.
Oh, God. Okay.
They were worshiping the light bearer.
That's scary. That's a lot scarier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's when people started to believe some of the more outlandish rumors about the people of the organization. They were worshiping the devil and actively trying to recruit more members in St. Augustine. Eventually, the group was forced to relocate because the warehouse wasn't zoned for a house of religion. So, like, people were like, we got to get them out of here, kind of. Mm-hmm. Which is sad. Like,
well, you don't have the permit.
You have the freedom to worship the devil if you so choose in America. Like, if that's your prerogative, I think that's a bad choice, but do you, I suppose.
I'm scared.
I don't like it, but whatever. That's your right, I guess, in America. But people were trying, like, there's nothing we can do. Like, that's their right. But then they found that the zoning for the warehouse was not for religious purposes. And they're like, okay, zoning.
There's our out.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
It seemed as though at this point, the group was totally disbanded and nobody heard from them in St. Augustine following that day. The building remained empty for quite some time. And for a while, people would seemingly leave animal sacrifices and build altars inside the spot where the Luciferian cult once resided. So I don't know if it was kids
being
coming,
stupid.
like teenagers being, weird, or if it were actual members that still lived in St. Augustine who came to continue on their practices.
I'd believe that because not everybody can pick up and move.
Yeah. They'd leave signs and symbols associated with Satan in and around the building. There's another odd piece of the puzzle to Warehouse 31. There have been reports for decades of a very large monster lurking around the warehouse. Don't laugh yet. It's
okay.
Strange. Other buildings in the vicinity and the wooded area that sits at the back of the building. In and around everywhere. And behind the building is just woods. Mm-hmm. It's just trees, like thickly dense trees. It doesn't look like an animal, but a creature. Described by many as a massive alligator with wings. And it sounds like a dragon to me, honestly. But there were reports of the creature eating small animals and people's pets that resided in the area and striking fear in those who came near. Many who have seen the creature believe that it is some kind of demon or beast from hell brought on by the dark practices and ceremonies performed by the former church that took residence in the warehouse. But there were supposed sightings of the creature before Wist and his crew arrived in Florida. A man riding a motorcycle sometime in 1997 saw the large winged creature sitting in wait in the trees along the road where the warehouse would go on to be built. So before the warehouse was even a structure.
Yeah.
And maybe Wist and his cult were drawn to the warehouse because of its proximity to a demon already existing in its backyard. Maybe the monster is a demon. Maybe it's just an amalgamation of all the darkness and evil that has occurred on the land of St. Augustine from its beginnings during colonization and before. A physical manifestation of darkness just waiting.
Okay.
Is the warehouse haunted by demons? A manifestation of evil? Or is it just a story told by those wishing to drum up business during Halloween? I'm not entirely sure. But one thing I am sure of is that St. Augustine is extremely haunted. It has a dark past. hundreds, if not thousands of people who have had an experience while staying in the area. As I said before, it seemed as if every single building in St. Augustine had a story connected to the paranormal and its location to the water. So,
oh yeah,
kind of. And the limestone
Water
nearby
and limestone.
that's used to build many of the original structures makes the possibility of hauntings great. So I'm not sure. I that's why I kept it in here, because that first when I read it, I was like, oh, this. I can't really find anything about this. Beyond these couple of articles that I saw, there was really nothing. But the creature got me because, is it a demon? Is it just all of the darkness kind of formed into one and it presents itself to people however, whatever frightens them, like
on Harry Potter?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Because, I mean, in Florida, you're obviously, if you see a lot of alligators.
Yeah.
And so you probably fear, or maybe not necessarily fear alligators, but like are cautious about alligators all the time.
People in Florida are not afraid of alligators.
People in Florida are wild.
No, they grab them by the neck and just like chunk them.
Not all of them. Not all of them are crazy.
You had me until the creature.
Really?
Really. I was like, wow, that's real. And then
I don't believe that the creature is a creature. In my mind, it is just darkness. It is a manifestation of evil.
I don't know.
I don't know if the story from 1997 before the warehouse was there is true or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's also another thing that like I couldn't find anything besides there.
Yeah.
But especially if it came after,
100%. I don't know.
It's something dark.
I was on the train. I was fully with you until you said the creature, and then I was like, this sounds like a story.
So strange that you don't believe in creatures and stuff like that.
Because like
the earth is a strange place.
Oh, it is. It is.
And we have not explored everywhere.
Oh no, I know that. But I don't know. Why would there just be one?
Maybe it's not just one.
Like, is he lost?
Or maybe he's the only one left.
I don't know.
I don't know. But I don't believe it's an actual creature. Like, I don't know if it's like you walk up and it's an alligator with wings. I believe that it's something dark.
I would like to. Okay, so I don't want to experience any like demons or ghosts or anything. I would like to experience something to put me on the creature train.
A cryptid?
Something.
Okay. We're going to Appalachia.
No.
There's a lot of cryptids near Appalachia.
No. See, I know about that. No. But all right. That was an interesting way to end this. The sacrifices and worshiping stuff, that gets me. That scares me really bad.
Me out, yeah.
Really bad.
Me too.
I don't even want to talk about it because I feel like
I just don't know why anybody would worship or practice something known to be evil and dark. You know what I mean?
Like when people are lost or vulnerable, it's easy to convince them of anything. That's how cults happen.
Yes, that's very true. So, and this was like a devil worshipping cult.
Yeah.
Here.
And so you can be convinced of anything if you're low enough.
I guess so. I just think even in my lowest points, if someone told me like, hey, there's this like darkness we can talk to,
but it gets you your way.
And it gets you what you want, but I mean, it's darkness. I'd still be like,
but you're you. No. You're not someone that has gone through all the things that these people.
Yeah. Cults fascinate me.
Me too. I personally know that I could not be indoctrinated into a cult, if that's even the right word.
No, I think you could.
No.
I truly think you could.
No, I could not, because one, I don't like being told what to do.
If they got you with the right stuff, maybe not. You would be a slow transformation, but if they got you with the right stuff, you 100% would.
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think so. I think you could with your making bread and home remedies and stuff.
Making bread, I could go into it.
I think so. If someone was like, we have the best sourdough recipe, you'd be like, okay, I'll follow you.
Absolutely not. I love that that's your image of me, though. But I'll keep that.
They're like, we have mushrooms and sourdough. And you'd be like, I think I can get on board with this.
I'm in. What's that on Rick and Morty? It's like, son of a bitch, I'm in.
That's you. That's you. I can see how certain people could get into that, because there are some people that are just so down,
and they're looking for the community.
Needing something. Or, and I mean this in the most respectful way, don't have a very high IQ. They're just not very intelligent. So they can be convinced of a lot of things.
Less low intelligence, more
needing community and family and something.
Well, more needing community, less inclined to seek knowledge.
Yeah.
For themselves.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I can see how people can be convinced. I don't think I could be convinced of something that dark. I mean, if it was like the cult of the dog, maybe.
God, 100%.
Maybe.
Like the cult of Petey.
I was going to say Petey's their
mascot.
Yes. Yeah, sure. But nothing crazy like that.
No. You're just very hard-headed. And like if I came to you and told you this thing that you've been super involved in was a cult, I think you'd be like, no, it's not. And you would do everything in your power to prove me wrong and stay with it because
you didn't want to be like proved to have been in a cult. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Maybe we should just do a bonus episode about cults because I'm very into
That would
it.
be fun. But St. Augustine, haunted.
Terrifying.
I love it.
We'll be going.
Our mom texted us after listening to our first episode and was like, St.
We're
Augustine's
going.
only this far away. Let's go.
Yeah.
So
This far away, and it was several hours.
of
It was
driving.
like a day of driving. She's like, we can go.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Before we get on too much, this is where we leave you. We appreciate you taking the time to watch and listen. And the best way to support us is to subscribe or follow us on podcasts. Share with your friends. Do you have any spooky friends? Anyone you think that would be interested with us? Leave us a comment. Let us know. I know a few people have been to St. Augustine. They were telling us about it in the comments. That's really cool. So if you have any suggestions on any places or hauntings that you want us to talk about, please leave them in the comment section too, because I take every suggestion and I put it on our list. We have like a long running list that's already into next year, and I put it on our list. So we'll talk about it at some point. Leave us 5 stars if you're on podcast. And if you have a spooky tale of your own, any encounters, cryptid that we want to convince Natalie of, leave that in the comments, or you can email it to us at ghostiespod@gmail.com. We'd love to read that, especially on an upcoming episode of our spooky tales.
I think that's where we're leaving.
We'll see you next Monday.
Goodbye.